Okay, so this video is going to be a quick demonstration of GameLab and a couple of functions. This is something that I usually go over in class under normal circumstances, but we didn't really have a chance to do that this year. And I'm doing this with the expectation that some of you might want to use this for your create performance task. I was trying to urge everybody just to use AppLab. I think it's simpler and there's less complexity, but I know that some of you are dead set on creating a traditional game that AppLab doesn't always support, especially when it comes to creating custom sprites and doing movement and things like that. So I'll do a quick overview of GameLab. You're still going to have to problem solve a lot of things on your own, but I'll go over one or two things that'll help get you started. So when you're at your dashboard, so this is usually the login screen that most of you should see once you log into code, click up here where it says projects. In this screen or on the screen, you're going to see a list of all your projects down below. But what you're going to want to do is create a new game, which is GameLab, and we click right there. AppLab is the one that we usually work in, and GameLab is the one I'm going to be showing. And I want to demonstrate what is possible with GameLab itself, because it's a really sophisticated tool, and you could create almost a full-fledged mobile game in it. In fact, here is one game that one of my students created last year, which is Galaga, and once I run it and start, you can see right here that it is a full type of Galaga game. Pretty impressive. And let me show you a second example that is probably a little bit more original, and that is a game that another one of my students created last year. That he called The Myth of Arcanus, and he created pretty much all this on his own. Actually, I don't know if he created the background, but I know he created all the characters. And this is the game that was created. I think it was only 1 or 2 levels of the game that was created, but that's still pretty impressive for a create performance task. Not too bad. I don't think he ever expanded beyond that, but that is pretty impressive for probably 2 weeks that he spent in GameLab. So let's go back to GameLab. I have a demo set up that I will be showing some of the code. I can't show the code of the other programs that I showed you because it would be a violation of their privacy and of the test. But I can show you this. Now this is a demo that I created specifically for showing GameLab. I'll try to make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see some of the text. You'll notice that you have all the traditional controls you would have in AppLab, but you have a couple extra ones. So you have groups, you have world, and you have sprites. I think those are the main differences. And if you work with sprites before, it shouldn't be too bad. If you've never used sprites before, then you're going to make it that much more difficult on yourself, since I can't really do a full lesson, and the help that I can give is somewhat limited. But a sprite is going to be any of the graphic elements that you create on your own or bring in that you're going to control and manipulate somehow in the code. Now everything here is pretty standard, except that if you look up here, you have a tab for code and a tab for animation. If you click tab for animation, here is where you get to handle all of your sprites. So here you can create custom animations. You could bring in preset sprites, and I'll give you an example right here. So if I want to bring in, let's say, a secondary object, I could click here where it says new animation, and I have an option of bringing in all these samples that they already have for me. Let me bring in this. Let's do the cow. So I now have 2 different sprites. I have this one and I have this one. And notice how this changes over here. That's because this controls possible different animations for each one. So if I want to add a new frame, I can add a new frame, and it's going to be for the same elephant. And let's say I want to modify this, because I can modify it. Let me do something really quick. So change this to white, and I'm going to paint out. Let's see if I can make that larger. Let me just do it this way. it didn't work. Here, let me just do this then. There we go. That's actually what I wanted. And I'm going to do this just for one. I'm going to do it really kind of messy. That's actually what I wanted there. I'm going to do another circle. This one I'll make black, and I'll move that one up here. And then I'll fill it in. And then now, look over here, you can see the animation playing. You can make it faster or slower, but that's the animation, and that's how you do it. So you could bring in outside images, or you could create your own. So you could upload an image, you could draw your own. You can just constantly bring in things that are already created for you. So that is a screen. I can't really show too much just because of time, but they're similar to the Google Drawing functions, and you just have to kind of play with it. If animation is not your thing, if doing this is not your thing, then I would advise trying to stay away from this, unless you could bring in all outside sprites for the project, because it can get kind of challenging. Now let's go back to our code, because this is the main thing that I want to show you. So I'm going to show the blocks really quick just to kind of show this, and the main thing I want to show is how to make a sprite appear, and how to control it, and even how to attach it to the mouse. The two main things I'm going to show, or actually three main things. So when I run it, I have the elephant appears, and when I go to the right, and I have a console.log here to show, I'm pressing on the right arrow key, left arrow key. So that it's moving in the X direction, and it's also rolling. So how are we making that happen? Here's how we're making it happen. First thing we have to do is create a sprite. We only have one sprite on the screen right now, so that's only one sprite to create. And just like everything in code, you should be assigning everything to a variable. So create sprite. I'm creating it at x200 and y200, and I have it named to the variable animal. So now I have to do a function. This is what's going to control the character and allow me to draw it on the screen. So a function called draw. I'm setting the background to white. And my animal animation is being set to elephant. And how am I getting elephant? I'm getting it from this name right here. So this right now becomes kind of an object. It's a sprite, but I can call it object. So I am setting this variable and this condition to be applied to that image. That's the way it's working. So creating the variable, assigning it to this image, and then now we're looking at the control. If key down is right, animal.rotation equals animal.rotation plus 5. So it's going to rotate 5 to the right, because it's a positive, so positive is going to go to the right. And then I'm going to say animal.x equals animal.x plus 5. And that's what's making it move across the screen. If I didn't have this, it would spin in place. In fact, I could show you really quick. Let me get rid of both of those. And it's just going to spin in place because it's just a rotation. And I'll take that back off. When I play it again, you see it's making it travel that distance along the X. So key down at right, and then animal.x equals animal.x plus 5. So that this argument for animal is now being set to the same thing, but now plus 5. Remember, it's all based off of that starting position. And then it's just the opposite for left. Going left is going negative on X, and it's doing a negative rotation. So that's how that looks. All right, so I said I was going to show one last thing, so let me go ahead and do that. Let me comment out all of this. I'm going to show you how to attach the sprite to the mouse. And it's these two lines of code right here. Animal.x equals world.mousex, animal.y equals world.mousey. And when I run it, it is now attached to the mouse. So there are some basics. The last thing that you have to be aware of is to get any sprite to appear on the screen, you have to draw it. Just like last year in Python where you have to do pygame.draw, well, you have to draw your sprites too. After all the conditions have been set, then you have to draw it. And that's why it's all part of the same function right here. And once I have draw sprite, it draws a sprite, and my little elephant here guy works. That's pretty much it. If you have an animation attached to this, so if, I don't know, let's do the elephant again. Let's see if I can do this a little bit faster this time. Oh, it already saved it. That's weird. Has that. And let me add one more frame for that elephant. Let me see if I can do this a little bit quicker now. Maybe get rid of the little eyeball here. And I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to draw it in a different direction. So my goofy-eyed elephant. You see the animation running? Now that I have the animation set and I run this, you see the animation is automatically playing on the elephant. And it will continuously run as long as you tell it to run. You'd have to have it stop or give some sort of condition to it that's all set with these different variables and different functions in here. And that's it. If you have a specific question of how to do something, go ahead and ask it, and I'll let you know of whether or not I can answer it. It has to be fairly general for how it applies to GameLab for me to go over it. I know that some of you are familiar with collisions, but based on this information right here, I want you to try to figure it out. And then maybe I'll talk about it generally. I cannot talk about it specifically for your actual program, but I can talk about it generally to the class. So I'm hoping that helps. I'm hoping the video wasn't too long. And I hope to hear from all of you on a more regular basis. I just want to make sure that you are making progress. Make sure that you're sending me those updates for your programs. This week we also need to look at how to answer some of the questions and how to record your screen. So that's it for this video, and I'll talk to everybody soon.